Hello, everybody. I'm Amos. This is Maile Yawata and Wendy Kim Messier. She's whispering it. I'm very happy to be here at Fishcake, and it's in celebration of the show and as well as this book in the studio. And so there's three of us are actually in this book, and we're just here to talk story.
Yay.
So Maile, you it seems like you came with a dissertation there. Well, what is that?
I thought I would just bring up an aspect of art, a terminology. The word is kintsugi,
Mhm.
and kintsugi as a philosophy is kind of like wabi-sabi, which is embracing the flawed or imperfect in art, in life. And in fact, it stems from broken pottery that is put back together using lacquer and gold. And instead of trying to hide the flaw, it in fact becomes illuminated by this fixing. And it's such a wonderful idea to expand on. I thought maybe we could talk about that.
Yeah. So
Yeah, because when you're in the process of making things, often you're encountering problems and mistakes, and those can lead to more revelations about how to solve problems, etc. So this is kind of expanding on this idea.
I think for me it's like wabi sabi. It's perfect imperfection, and in doing that, so like I think for both of you, I have a question like, what is it when you're creating art? You know, there's moments when you know you're supposed to stop, but you go beyond, and so like,
Oh yeah.
what's but yet it's so perfect because it's beyond.
Well, this shirt is an example. It's kind of a rescue shirt. It was linen and bright pink and bright green. And a lot of times my solution is just dyed black. But what happened was still some of the pattern shows up. And I thought, I kind of like it the way it is because I kind of like things that are wrecked and destroyed. And so I put some color on it and I like the way it wrinkles. And so I feel comfortable in it.
Yeah.
But it started out as, just a pink and green shirt.
But how do you know when to stop?
I don't. A lot of times it's like, oh,
Yeah.
Too late.
Right.
I think she does know to stop. She has such a good eye.
So,
An unerring eye, truly, as a designer. And so Wendy's always designing, and she just looks at something, and I think it's not really important to her to put it aside, and maybe sometimes you do and come back to it, but she's quick. Am I right, Victor?
so, but you had mentioned that there was something about separating your art that would be shown in the gallery as compared to something that's more to be worn or commercial. What's the difference?
When you go to a gallery, you're expressing your personal, view of things, and it's totally free. When you do something for the market, it's where someone has to buy it first of all,
Mhm.
and then they have to wear it, and so you're not creating necessarily for yourself, but for how someone else will be able to look good in it. And there's a point, a sweet spot where what you want to make and what the person wants to buy is
Mhm.
right there,
Right.
and that kind of takes some practice.
So is that color, balance, all of these things? Because when I googled art, it says all of these things: texture, color, art, balance. But the last thing it had on was value, because now it's what people value art as.
Mhm.
How do you gauge your value?
Whatever somebody's going to pay.
You're right. Yeah.
Good answer.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the business is, right?
Mhm.
So if you have pure art, it goes beyond that. It doesn't think about the market.
So what is the balance for you? Are you surviving on your art? And is it commercial? Is it gallery?
me, I mean, it's the commercial part because it's more consistent.
Mm-hmm.
And every so often you make something for a gallery because you don't care if it sells or not. Well, you sort of want to, but
Right. Yeah.
so
So,
anyway.
and you've changed mediums so many times that I've known you.
Yeah,
I know.
It's
I
like,
know.
so what's the root
what
of that
do I
creativity?
do to make money?
No, I mean, what's
No?
the root of the creativity? The money comes. I think it always comes when you're doing something that
Well,
means, you know.
I guess you start when you're a kid, right? You make stuff, and that just becomes part of who you are. So, after going to university and concentrating on painting, drawing, and printmaking, I really am more of a sculptor now. Small
Mhm.
things, and that just sort of evolved. And
So when you were at university, what were you going to do as a painter, as a sculptor, as a
I never
because
thought that I was having such a good time.
I think that's true for all of us.
Yeah, and the community of friends. I mean, I met these people when I was at university, especially Amos. Hung out with Amos then.
She was much older.
Anyway, I think that community, my work really revolves around ideas about relationships and people and what they're going through, including myself, family, friends. It sort of just pops up. So I think that this community that kind of formed around then was always my family. And essentially, I always just wanted to stay in touch with this group of people. But I had to do various things to survive. So I taught for many, many years, and I also did public art, and I worked as a commercial artist. So all of those things were part of my repertoire. And then when my son turned 18, I thought I could just kind of do my own thing, which wasn't real obvious to me what that would be. Finding your voice and your own images and how you're gonna, what you're tapping into about yourself to make that true took a long time, took a while. And now I'm more comfortable expressing that part of myself. So,
it takes a while. You're poking
Yeah.
around all the time.
right.
And
Right.
I don't know any artist that hasn't gone through all kinds of mediums. Right? We all have
Right.
that kind
I
of
mean, you as
Yeah.
well. You've done fashion, drama,
Well, with fashion, I
filmmaking.
think where inspiration came for me from a young age was my mom because she was a seamstress. And so because of that, I mean, I would hang out, I was like the OPE, so I'd hang out under the sewing machine. But sewing for her was work. And so I picked that up. And so for me, I don't like mechanical things. I don't even like to vacuum. I don't like to use computers. I don't like to do any of those things. I like to do hand things, cut things,
Right.
and I want to feel it and do it. So that was part of my bringing up in terms of inspiring me to do something. So I never feel that doing art is work,
Yeah.
which is very, very different. And
Yeah.
for me, my playground as a kid was the supermarket. I loved the supermarket because it had boxes of color
Yeah.
and it had bright lights and it had different shapes but not just one, but like lots of it,
Uh-huh.
as compared to the corner grocery store. So that was my playground, my visual
Wow.
playground.
Labels.
It was labels, it was graphics, it was bright colors.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So, but what was your
I like the corner
Childhood.
store, the dusty
Oh.
kind of peeling labels.
love spread?
Yeah.
Squishy stuff.
Yeah, what about the crack seed store,
Oh,
right?
that was,
As a
yeah.
kid, you would stand behind those big jars of mihi moi
And salivate.
and salivate and look out at the street from
Yeah.
behind these jars, right?
But these images, I think, stay with us in terms of
Yes,
our preference.
definitely. Yeah.
doing it. So you both have your own style, but I mean, how has that over the years changed because of travel, because of family, life experiences?
Everything contributes.
Everything influences. But your point about your mom being a big influence in how you started, I feel this. I thought about that, and my mom was a single mother who she was always expressing herself facially. She had a really plastic face, and I think I picked that up from her. And I'm always aware that you can really tell a story with your
But
face.
it's all in your work. I mean, it's like
And
they're
so yeah, I'm
portraitures.
still doing that, and I think, gosh, I think it started with her.
Mm.
Because this is the person you want to communicate with, and you want to know what she's
Right.
saying all the time. From the time you're an infant. So I that really stuck with me.
Yeah.
Reading faces. Yeah.
I think in Hawaii has a way of embracing diversity, and it's like for me is I had a lot of aunties and uncles, but nobody lived on this island. But I had like Habuchi Hamani next door that made their own kimchi.
Mhm.
I had the Portuguese policeman that lived next door that caught me smoking as a kid that made me stop. Anyway, all of these things, but that's how rich Hawaii is. And so, what's Hawaiian about your work?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't think about it. But I mean, I do have some thoughts about, like that hanging
Mm-hmm.
was about the pollution and the Hawaiian Islands and the pieces that all come together, but they're doomed in a way.
So, how important is it to have a political statement? Because when you look at a piece like this,
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of you appreciate it, but then when you understand the hidden story, the meaning, the inspiration, or the intent of the message, it takes on a different thing. For art is nonverbal, so how do you get a verbal response?
I mean, I just do what I like to do, and
Yeah.
it comes out. Oh, that fits, and
Well, I think this is a perfect platform. Here we are, three artists, and I'm happy to say friends that really we're survivors.
Yeah. I mean, think of the percentage of.
Oh, she has a quote.
yeah, because
Okay.
you were saying about if you're going to go for it, you have another thing in common with other artists. That's desperation. You jump out of a window, style-wise. Try to put it together before you hit the ground. And so I'm thinking, we're
That's
all
great.
Yeah.
and kind of. I mean, I think we've sort of put it together before we hit the ground.
Right.
But there's a lot of artists that are still, poking, which is good.
Mhm.
But if you live long enough, like you say,
Yeah.
you feel comfortable doing what you're doing now. And I think I found what pleases me and how I can express it.
So how do you want to spend the time doing art? What's important to you?
More balance, I think.
Balance in life, balance.
Yeah,
Mhm.
balance in life, because now you see there's a finite amount of time,
Mm-hmm.
and you say, geez, I could do 100 pieces of clothing, but what about if I just did 20?
Mm-hmm.
Or what about if I went and watered my plants
Yeah.
and maybe made a good meal or spent time with my friends?
Right.
Those things become more important.
Right.
The deadline is not there.
So what do you want to be remembered for? I mean, really, because all artists want to be remembered, and it's like when you think of all these art pieces that are in museums and everything else, not every art piece gets there.
Yeah.
So what's important?
I don't know, because if you're remembered by the people that mean something to you, that's important,
Right.
and they remember you in a positive way, that you had some point of view and you did something a little fun and creative. I mean, that's a good memory.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I like to sing. Shall we sing?
Me.
The dog will hear me. No one else.
You want to
No.
be known for your singing?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. We haven't heard it yet.
You know, it's like I wanted to paint, and that's how we met. I think was in Bushnell's class, and I don't think you remember that because I was the one coming in, and they all left. All the friends that I made all left.
Oh, I was
Because-
older than you.
Yeah.
Not anymore,
my
though.
first year, yeah, we kind of caught up, but that's okay. But it's like I want to go back to painting
Great.
because it was never approved. I've never seen as someone who could do that, and so textile was my way of expressing. I used mops and brooms and
But you're
and
painting with your fabric.
I'm
Right.
painting on
I
my
mean-
fabric, but not in that way of.
You know,
It-
You mean
focus.
you literally want to go back to a canvas with a brush and
Canvas.
oil paints
Yeah.
or acrylics or
Yeah.
whatever? Oh,
And that's what I did with fabric, and because it became very impermanent, and for me the whole point about the fabric was to cut it and just to position the things
Uh-huh.
differently, and that's when it was complete. And when it was on the body, it became a complete piece of art because then it was how I still drape and cut,
yeah, right.
and that's how I do fittings for outfits. So,
Yeah.
but what's the first thing you think of when you're just starting your piece? Is it the story? Is it the medium? Is it
depends on all the things that you're using to create this thing. It's the fabric, first of all, right? And then you say, what is the color? Can I work with it in this color? A lot of times we'll dye it. Or you figure out, I like black in fabric, just because there's a grounding, and you can always wear black pants.
Mhm.
So,
I only wear black underwear because it makes it easy. I never have to think about before it was like, I want red, I want yellow, I want this. Now it's just easy. Black socks, black underwear solves the problem.
Yeah.
It's like black is the all important
it's
base.
a grounding almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Go ahead.
I just was gonna get back to a previous thing you guys were talking about. I think that if you can create a life for yourself that is unique to you, where you're contributing and you have, like you said, a good balance, you have friends, you have relationships that are successful, that where you're nurtured and they are nurtured by you, and then you can do your thing.
Yeah.
That's an amazing life.
But how do you mentor that? I mean, with
Well,
kids, I think
we're
kids are
old,
really
so-
easy to mentor that way. But it's the ones that are just graduating that are in college and they're asking, "Can I apprentice with you?" And I'm going, "Why?" You know, it doesn't make sense to me. But what do you say to young artists?
I say I can teach you how to print. I can teach you how to dye, but I don't want you to think that I have the answer to any of this. You have to figure out your own voice, but I can teach you techniques. And the idea that somebody can copy you or, that goes against all your instincts in art.
So is art original? I mean, is any art original? Because I know for me, it comes from so many different points of visual
Yeah.
that I don't consider my art mine. I consider it just a moment.
Yeah, but it is yours.
It's got my hand on it. It's
Yeah.
got my interpretation.
Yeah.
But that color red has always been there. I mean,
Yeah, but how you place it on that
Right.
piece. And so that's why you tell the kid, you gotta find your own voice, and but everything around you is you.
it's a different generation now, though. The generation is of not entitlement, but it's like they're brought up with so much positive encouragement and just do, and everything is
Yeah.
fabulous and incredible.
Yeah.
And then you go in and you say, well, what about using this or using that? As a teacher, I never touched my students' work
Right.
because I had instructors who would do that, would get the brush and go over it and then do their own thing. And I'm looking at it, but I feel like, but it's not.
It's no
All
longer
right.
your work.
Yeah, it's not mine anymore.
Yeah.
So that was my rule as a teacher: was don't touch the students' work, just give them direction.
Yeah.
In doing that, but today you can't really do that. I mean, what
Mhm.
word do you give to
Yeah, but
a
if there's,
20-year-old?
I think you just can point out how something could
Yeah.
be improved and why you think that way. For instance, if somebody is making up some kind of language, or like it looks like it's Chinese or Japanese, and you have to point out that unless that's really accurate, you don't want to do that
Mhm.
because of you might insult somebody. You know, this is made up. So then you have to point out that sometimes the use of certain words or images requires some
Precise.
ethical
Yeah.
approach
Yeah.
to what you're doing.
See, I do calligraphy, but the calligraphy I call it spirit writing.
Well,
And-
yeah,
and
that's more.
that's a totally different.
Yeah, no, it's yeah.
It's so
no, I
open
understand.
and
Yeah.
accepting.
But when it's prominently, like,
Yeah.
it's like, what does that mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's okay.
yeah, maybe it's
You know,
just,
maybe
Yeah.
it is
So
okay.
it's always about the story, but I mean, what's the story? I mean, like for you, what was the turning point that made you say I'm an artist?
oh, it's what other people said about you, because
But what was the moment when you said it to yourself that I'm an artist? I mean, because that's really where the story needs to begin. Because we're sitting here.
I don't usually say that. I just say I'm a designer or I make clothes. I never label myself that way because I think it's something someone else puts on you.
So what's the difference between a designer and an artist?
A designer to me is more practical. A designer works with communication. And to me, an artist is communing with himself and putting something out that's very, very personal, but it's a label, and
See,
I'm not
yeah.
comfortable with it.
Oh, I consider you an artist and a great artist.
See,
Same
but
with you.
it's coming from you, not from.
Well, or you could break it down into your professional expertise, like painter,
Yeah.
sculptor.
Would you say you're a teacher before you said you were a sculptor?
No, not anymore. I hardly teach anymore.
So our labels are changing constantly.
Right.
Yeah, and there was this big debate about what should I call myself, a potter or a ceramicist. There's two different.
Well, they're very
connotations.
distinct. Well, ceramicist means all of ceramics, right? A potter is making pots.
Yeah, but a potter, I think, feels like it's more humble.
It's utilitarian.
But they really value that
Yeah.
aspect of it, like people like Clayton and
Right.
David.
Right.
Yeah. So that's kind of
I remember Toshiko coming to a class, and I started in pottery, and I worked for a long time hand building this thing. And she walks over with a needle and just slices it open, and she says, "Don't get attached to anything." Lesson learned.
Yeah, good lesson.
And it's
Yeah,
like,
you're.
and how are you supposed to say Toshiko?
Well, that's another aspect of making art is the philosophical thing about this preciousness about everything and how sometimes it seems pretty easy to let go of that idea.
What idea?
That something is so precious,
Yeah.
especially after you break it
Yeah.
Oh,
or
yeah,
something
yeah.
happens.
But your work can
Um,
become that too when you get tighter and tighter. You just really have to stand back sometimes and say, "Hey, this is getting to be too formulaic.
Uh-huh.
I know what works."
Uh-huh.
So Toshiko was right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like devastating to me because it was like thrown in hand. I still remember it. But the lesson was really harsh,
Yeah.
but that's where she came from. And for her, it was like, I do this every day.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
when
But
Meichi,
go ahead.
when Meichi was starting out, she said she had really had a hard time doing things on the wheel. And she took a class from Toshiko, and Toshiko said, "Well, why do you have to work on the wheel? Just build it with coil."
Mhm.
And that changed her whole trajectory.
Right.
She became known for that. So
Right.
just a little word sometimes.
So who were your mentors? I mean, different people teach us so many great lessons. But
My mentors.
Yeah,
I
I don't
I
think
think For me, Esther is one of my mentors. I mean, when I saw, I took a couple of classes from Esther. This is later in my so-called career, and I started doing figurative clay pieces, and I said, "Wow, I really like doing this." I just got very excited about it, and so Esther Shimazu, who is just an incredible artist, and Kei Mura was also a big supporter and help to me. Those two women, and for photography, Franco really gave me a lot of great feedback. So, but all the other stuff is
Yeah.
years ago. Printmaking, painting.
But were there some words that they said or something that you remember that they kind of changed? Or
Well, I remember Esther saying, she called me up. She said, "What are you doing? Are you finished with your piece?" It was this workshop. And I said, "Well, I don't really like it." She said, "Well, get your ass over here then and fix it." I said, "Oh, you can still work with clay after it's like already getting pretty hard." And she never gives up. She just keeps tweaking everything until she has what she wants. So then you learn, to keep the piece still malleable by covering it up. And I just knew so little about clay. And
but
she
that's the exciting part,
that's the
discovery.
exciting part. When she told me that, I said, "Oh, I could still work on this?"
Yeah.
I thought that was it, once I had
Right.
kind of more or less put it together. So, but, that was a great learning tool. Clay, you could keep manipulating it. I mean, she does.
Right.
So it's, pretty hard. You can
Right.
still work with it if you know what to do technically. Yeah.
Do you have any mentors?
I don't know about mentors, but people that change your direction.
Right.
And I think if I hadn't gotten married to Victor, I would probably still be doing graphic design.
Okay.
So I had to figure out what to
Yeah.
do when we moved to Maine. And Victor's always been supportive of anything I wanted to do. So I found some fabric and I started doing blah blah. And pretty soon it started going into clothing, which I always knew how to sew.
Mm-hmm.
And that really started to take off because I needed to make us an income. Because we were just kind of poor.
It wasn't enough for you to be kept.
I wish. But it was something that if you're in an environment that's very nurturing and you see things around you that you can do, you're wide open at some point.
It's interesting. Three of us, like for me, the sewing machine kind of links us. Like I don't sew by machine; I do it all by hand. But I remember Maile in textile, where you actually designed an outfit, printed it, and sewed it, and did all of that. So in that way, you influenced me because I thought I could do that, but in a different way.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
really.
I think I only did it once.
Yeah, but I remember it. It was very Marimekko-ish, kind of old.
Yeah.
And it was amazing.
Yeah.
And
Didn't you in high school sew prom gowns for your classmates?
Yeah, and she's
Yeah,
really
I
good
did.
at hand rolling silk.
Yeah. Well, she can do anything.
She just helped me.
Oh, it took me forever to do that. So, yeah, no, that's just like we all started when we were pretty young.
Yeah.
Making things, Easter eggs, Christmas wrappings, then
Yeah.
get doll clothes, and then in high school, made everything I wore and made prom gowns for my friends, which I designed. But of course, I had these patterns that I could alter. I mean, right?
There's
You
something
just keep
about work
making
that is
going.
meditative. You know, I
Yeah.
find like sewing is really meditative for me. It's like when I'm doing gowns, it's silly, but it's my own thing. Like I have a certain amount of knots. Like I know if there's 7 contestants in this beauty pageant, there's 7 things, but then I ended with 1 knot because I want this girl to win.
Oh,
I put thoughts into
numerology
it. I
is
do
a big part of how
numerology.
you work.
It's part of it, and it's also, I think, I believe in the power of words and prayers. And when I'm sewing, I put those thoughts into the sewing. so that when somebody wears it, like the shirts, I always say it's wearing a prayer.
Yeah.
You know, I launched the collection at Neiman's Support on the first day of my chemo. And everyone said, you can't do that, you can't. And I thought, why not? Why not be around people that you want to be around with when I launched a career? You know?
That'll be on your tombstone. Why not?
Why not? I'll tell you why. But anyway, no, but it's I think sewing links all three of us.
I started third grade because I was in 4-H, and then they give you a paper with a spiral drawn on it, and you have to go on your sewing machine.
Wow.
To follow that line, and
Wow.
then you have to sew a simple skirt. So I was always interested in sewing.
I think sewing is a great thing to teach kids too. You know, young
Use
men,
Yeah.
they get off on that power of the sewing machine,
Right.
and I just think all kids should learn how to sew.
Maybe not all
Not your brown kids.
So anyway,
But you know, Waldorf school, you learn how to knit
Right.
and sew, and it's very basic, and I think it works its way into a certain thought process and a way of.
I don't know though. Some parents, when they see their sons doing macrame and sewing, they get upset.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
whatever.
Oh well.
so our time is almost up. So like, is there something that you wanted to say about just your art, who you are?
Not anymore.
Okay.
That's it. Lunchtime.
Really, lunchtime.
Okay.
Yeah, any questions from?
Oh,
Oh,
I
moment
have
of
two
silence.
questions,
Yes.
actually.
Yes.
I wondered if any of you had like really downtime away from art, whether for whatever reason, and how did you return to it? And also, you talked about higher power, chi. How does that factor into your art?
Well, the part about downtime, the way we do that is just go on a trip. And don't look at your cell phone, don't do email. You just go away and can't touch anything. And it's really good because you're just in another world. And it's all interesting. And then when you come back, you sit with it. And sometimes you can see a direct connection, but not always. But just being in another place is good. You have to do it.
So by downtime, you mean
Did you stop doing art for a period of time?
I didn't do my own art for many years because I needed a job. So then I was teaching and doing commercial art, and I thought often when I was doing these commercial projects that I never was really satisfied with what I was doing. And as impractical as it seemed, as I mentioned, when my son turned 18, I said, I'm going to do this, my own thing. And I wasn't as concerned about money. I was married to somebody who was very supportive. And so I could. And I spent 10 years as a printmaker, and that really helped me. So another person whose name I didn't mention was David Smith, a master lithographer at Honolulu Printmakers, who really helped me get back into what it is who are you, kind of a me thing with printmaking. Anyway, so, but before that, I can truly say I was not as happy as I became later when I had this freedom to work.
Yeah, you said this is the best time of your life.
Yeah, I did say that to her. I think
I
this
think
is the
so,
best
too.
time in my life.
Yeah.
I mean, to have lived this long, for one thing, to have this much experience behind us. And look at these people. I mean, they're great. I looked at the book last night. I said, oh my God,
Yeah.
I love her. They're great.
Well,
Really? Here's another one right here.
well, Fishcake, I think, is a studio that encourages art.
Yeah.
There aren't that many places that you can show your art, and that they're innovative in creating themes and concepts to submit, your work for, and it kind of spurs you on to do other stuff, doing
Right.
it. And this is an incredible collection of artists in the studio, and thank you for that. I think it's an amazing collection, and I think the stories are great, and that's why we're doing these very informal talks to kind of find out more about each of them.
Yeah. And
So-
thank you, Sachi,
Yes,
and,
And Chris.
Fishcake.
and
Yes,
Fishcake
yes.
and Chris. Thank you
Thank you.
very much. Well, thank you all for joining us, and it's time. Aloha.
Half of Lynette's question was fine, whatever. But because there is that reference to another energy, another force, or whatever, ki, chi, whatever we want, mana, whatever we want to label it as. Is that present in your being when you're doing art in any way? I mean,
I think in your life,
I
right?
think you're in a
Yeah.
zone when you're doing your art.
it is meditation.
Very similar to religion,
Yeah.
presumably. But I think that's why we do it,
yeah.
because it's really personal.
Yeah.
It's a very personal space, and
It's meditation, I think.
yeah,
And
it's
you look up at the
meditation.
clock and you think, how did they get to be this time?
Because time just, I mean, things just bombard you sometimes when you're working. All the stuff you kind of not paid attention to, right? And, you're working it out.
Yeah, I see Wendy's art as kind of an instrument, and the fact that you are one of the advantages I see of being a laborer or doing labor, like Leland on the rocks. It's very much embodied. I mean, it isn't meditative in the sense of home or anything like that, but it's a demanding full presence of what you're doing. The stitch, this and that, but it's embodied, and maybe that's just my own predilection or my lodestar for myself. If it's not in your body, you can't feel it. It's a bonus when you're moving with it, tai chi, yoga, doing art.
Working
Yeah.
in the yard.
So you have these tools, right? Wendy has her fabric, she has her silk screen, she has her needle and thread, and once you have those things at hand, then it takes you to that place, so it's kind of process oriented.
Yeah.
But
Right.
you may not really know what you're going to do.
Oh, it's gonna change.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's the fun part too.
The
If you-
surprise.
You already have a preconceived notion, and you're gonna I gotta make something exactly like that.
That's right.
It's
Yeah, well,
It's
even if
not
you know the end, it doesn't get there.
it doesn't look like that in the end anyway. So fortunately, that other part of you is strong. The
Yeah.
part that's intuitive and is just kind of going with the flow. So.
I think that's when you say that, I think if I was imagining doing a piece, it'd be like one artist said, I do art because I want to be surprised.
Neat.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I wanna amaze
I
myself.
definitely
Yeah.
want to
Wanna
be
amaze
surprised, and if I laugh, it's even more fun.
Yeah.
So
It's funny because it's like I live alone, and so but my neighbors think, oh, how many people live there? Because I talk to myself, I laugh, I do all these things, right? And it happens. But especially when I'm working, and I'm working like early mornings, it's not unusual for me to work through the night. And the doors open, the lights are on. My neighbors go, it's like a satellite, because it's glowing. All my lights are on. It's like people are
Alien.
showing up at 2 a.m. for a fitting. It's like it's what's going on. So anyway,
Yeah.
art for me is meditation, but it's also a good habit,
a good habit.
and it takes me to a place that I'm comfortable being alone.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that's the reason we're all still in relatively good health too, because we do.
Because we work alone.
We work alone.
But isn't that true? Like even if you're doing like a collective mural,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
still need that one time to look at it and go like, this needs to be done, that needs to be
Yeah,
done. And then it's like, you know, I worked on a project where we had incredible amount of volunteers. And it was like, how do you keep them all busy? Well, the way you keep them all busy is you have them do all these things, and then the next group comes in, and before they come in, you strip out all the things, and you have it done again. You know, all the things that aren't to where you want it to be. Normally, you don't have that luxury. It's what it is.
right.
But it's like that's how you keep doing it until you get better. And but that's
Yeah.
But
There's a
art-
momentum that
Yeah.
you build if you're working,
And there are
if you're
challenges.
really, like you're doing 14 shirts, you
Yeah.
know, it's like there's
Right.
this thing you're leaping off of, this
Right.
energy that you
deadlines, I think, really help.
deadlines.
If I don't have a deadline, it's like,
yeah,
You know, another interesting thing, and see if this is true about you doing your art. Before you get doing it, there's a whole rhythm that's happening. Whether I observe Wendy, and she may be over there somewhere in the studio.
It's called
And I'm thinking,
procrastination.
Christ, why am I walking over that
Yeah,
vacuum
that's
1,000
another
times,
thing.
whatever? But it's all part of this thing that she's about to do.
For me, it's like before I can put the final rhinestones and stuff on, I have to sweep the floor. You just have to sweep the floor.
Yeah,
Yeah, there are
it's
too many
something about it.
rhinestones.
It's
on the
like it's
floor.
just like there's thread, there's all these things, and I'm just going like, and it's stupid, but it's a habit.
No, I
That I-
do that before I start a project. I
Right.
vacuum everything up, I take a shower,
Right.
and everything's clean.
Clean, right, and
And
then
then
you
I-
begin
Wow.
because there is a ritual.
I don't
It's
do
a
that.
Yeah, it's like I like having people over for dinner or meals and stuff like this because I find that joyful.
Mhm.
Oh,
And
wow.
I never
it
know what
is
I'm
a-
gonna do, but you know, it's just what I have, and I just throw it together.
kidding.
But it's good. I mean, it's the gathering of people and
And
minds.
You know why? And then why that I think shows, or when we walk into your place and there it is, and I'm thinking, he had to be up all night for this. I mean, nobody put this shit
No,
together. And
I don't.
so, because it's so, you're not frazzled, you're not hurrying. There's no lack of breath in it.
Ziploc bags. I prep everything in Ziploc bags when and doing it.
He's very
And so
organized.
when it's time to, I just throw it all together and it's done.
Yeah, because you don't look organized because it
Yeah.
all comes together really quickly,
Well, but
but,
it's-
it's very beautiful and fresh.
But it's all there. It's the I like the prep, and it's alone time. I like. My cutting is not regular. It's not a chef's. I don't know how to do that, but I do know how to sing and cut.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you don't sometimes go to people's places, hours, whatever. There's a hurry up about to get it done, to get them presented, to do whatever. That's not so with you.
Well, see, the other thing with food for me is I like cold food, so I don't care if I serve food cold. Some people like it's gotta
Yeah.
be hot.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
gotta be now. You
Yeah,
gotta sit
that's-
down and
yeah,
eat.
that's
You got, and for me, it's like I don't really care.
Yeah, but the food.
I
Yeah,
think
I
it's
got it.
different. That's all.
That's-
But I think
You're
we
not
find
filming
joy.
this part, huh?
Why not?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Why not?
Oh,
Anyway.
you are filming?
Well, after he asked this question, because you guys didn't ask their second question.
Oh,
Oh,
So I
okay.
put it back in there.
well, anyway, thank you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Janice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janice.